Welcome to our session today where we are joined by the lovely Justin from Recruiter Insider, and we're going to be looking at the impact that candidate experience has on placement outcomes, which is a really interesting and involved topic. So I am very happy to be joined today by Justin Hillier. He is the CEO and founder of Recruiter Insider. I am Jackie Sherlock, Product Marketing Manager here at Mercury. I think most of you will probably know who I am. But yeah, I'm going to hand straight over to Justin so that he can talk us through some really interesting stats, and I think he's got some questions to ask along the way, so make use of the chat function, and if you've got any comments or anything like that, put them in chat, put them in Q&A, and the lovely Emily will mediate at the end, moderate even, not mediate, moderate at the end.
Mediate, let's get into a debate. I'm up for it, let's go.
So I will hand over to Justin.
Now, if you all can't tell, yes, I am from Australia. However, I am in London. There is one word I'm going to say consistently throughout this session that I can't say any other way. I'm not going to apologize for it. I cannot possibly naturally say data. It is just not within my wheelhouse at all. It is data to me. It will always be data. So I'm constantly going to say that. But I think to kick off today, we do have a poll that we're going to send out to you all. Has Emily got that ready to go? We sent that to everyone. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to come to that poll in a bit. But what I want to do firstly is just explain why I'm here and what I'm going to run you through. I'm going to share my screen, not end the event. That would be fun. Oops, almost clicked the wrong button. I'm not used to Teams. I'm so not used to Teams. It's not funny. So who are we and what do we do? If you haven't heard of Recruiter Insider, we are, in short, a feedback platform. But we're a very specific feedback platform that asks specific questions throughout the hiring process to better understand the experience, the process itself that your consultants are delivering, and are we meeting candidates' clients' expectations throughout? So what we've gone away and done is actually have a look at all of this feedback and tie it back to fill rates. So we've analysed over 1,200 consultants. There's been tens of thousands of reviews over the last 12 months in the UK. And what we actually did was have a look at the top 25% of performers on the platform by fill rate compared to the bottom 25% of performers by fill rate. And we're looking for the commonalities of what the very best fill rate consultants were doing throughout the process and delivering that candidate experience versus what the bottoms were missing out on completely and where those gaps actually highlighted the areas for improvement. So we had a look at all of this data. We've pulled together, there's probably about 12 or 13 key real data points that I'm going to run you through, and the impact that the candidate experience, it's not a fluffy term. I was just saying to Emily and Jackie before we jumped on here that I think I've been talking about the candidate experience, or it's been a topic of conversation around the industry for 25 plus years. It's crazy. It does actually matter. It really does matter. And this data highlights it more than anything else. There you go. There's one for data. I'm not going to be able to say data. So I think we've got that poll that's gone around. So I'm going to come back to that poll in a moment. But I'm going to take you through some of these data points and just point out where the candidate experience really does impact the hiring outcomes and can lift your fill rates exponentially. It's kind of, there's going to be some shocking data points here, which you're going to sit there and go, oh my God, that can't be true. I promise you it is. All of this is only based on the data, nothing else. So the first one, which blows my mind more than anything else, and when we take our clients through training on the platform, I point this out to them specifically. The single biggest difference, actually, no, we're going for something first, the performance gap by behavior. So the very best consultants on our platform have an average of 61.5% fill rate. They actually sit at 61.5% plus. The lowest quartile sit below 18%. That's a 3 to 4 times difference. So they're doing things exponentially better, delivering a better experience that's producing this kind of outcome. And the following data points really do highlight what they're doing and some key behavioral traits as well that sit within that I'm going to ask you a couple of questions later on to see where you actually sit with some of this, because I will be very, very interested indeed. But the first point, and this is the point I was going to mention just a second ago, that really does stand out, it has the biggest impact on the hiring outcome completely. And this is for perm roles to start with. So we firstly differentiate our feedback by perm and contract. So we ask different questions, although there are some same questions throughout the process that we do ask the candidates to give feedback on. This particular question, explaining interview process and timeframes, when the very best consultants on the perm side get this question right, they have a 60% improvement or uplift differential of fill rate to that of the bottom quartile. Explaining the interview process and timeframes. You wouldn't think this is such a big issue or part of the process that we need to actually get right. And when you look at the other questions that we ask at this stage of the process, I kid you not, no one ever guesses this question as the one that has the greatest impact, but it most certainly does. And one of the reasons when I take everyone through this and explain why this is such an important aspect to get right with candidates is that a candidate typically is not just talking to you about a job, they're talking about a job with other agencies and employers directly as well. And each one of those jobs has a different process, different number of stages, different time frames, different tests they might need to do depending on the role itself. And all of this, they've got to try and juggle 1, 2, 3 different jobs that they're looking at, plus everyday life. That is a nightmare. They've got to fit all this in. No one can actually do all of that and go, right, if I've got a job here that I don't know what's going on, I'm going to move forward with that one. That doesn't happen. So this actually has a massive influence on a candidate wanting to move forward and buying in to the process at the same time. And it's interesting because we do call it a hiring process. We need to manage it as a process or as a project. But I don't think, from what I see in the data and talking to thousands of consultants, that it's actually managed that way or at least explained that way as well to a candidate at the same time. So getting this right on the perm side of the fence has a 60% uplift on fill rates. Imagine just being able to explain the process well to a candidate and having that kind of impact. But here's where it gets really shocking. The same question on the contract side has 135% improvement. This is nuts. This just blew my mind when this data came through. It has a double impact, twice the amount of impact on the contract side than what it does on perm. The exact same thing. And contract, well, it's a little bit more transactional. It's a bit faster. It's, you're not always sure what's going to happen next. But the candidates who are looking at contract roles, it clearly significantly matters to them. The same exact question, the exact same explanation of what's going to happen next impacts contract candidates far more than what it impacts perm. But 60%, I think if I asked you, every single one of you on this session, if you could just get a 60% uplift on fill rate by doing one thing better, would you take it? I highly doubt anyone would say no. I can't see if there's any questions coming through. So I'm hoping, Emily, you're monitoring this and mediating, was it, Jackie? Going through that. So let's have a look, because I think those 2 points, they're the two biggest impacts, but everything else from here still has quite a significant role in the process. Understanding job requirements. So this is actually one on the client side. So the client does have an impact, obviously, on the process, but not as much as the candidate. This was what fascinated us most when we had a look at this data. The majority of the questions that came through that impacted fill rates did actually sit on the candidate side, with just a sprinkling of client impact there as well. But understanding the job requirements, look, honestly, it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be perfectly honest. If you don't understand the job, you're not going to be able to fill it. You're not going to be able to source candidates to begin with. You're not going to be able to screen them. You're not going to be able to interview them. Good luck putting the right shortlist forward. But a 37%, and this is based on the hiring manager feedback, that you actually understand the job. So getting that right and being able to then explain that to the candidate thereafter, bit of a no-brainer. But when you do get it right, the very best consultants by fill rate do have a significantly different uplift on fill rate performance than that of the bottom quartile. I think this one's a bit of a no-brainer, but to see it as a 37% improvement, that's pretty much what surprised me the most. And this one shouldn't surprise anyone either. Communication, keeping your candidates up to date. Bullhorn, sorry to mention another ATS, Jackie and Emily, but they've actually got some data on this. that shows that candidates actually do want to hear from you once a week. Now, that could be in any form or fashion. That could be an email, that could be a WhatsApp, that could be a text message, call, whatever it might be. They want to hear from you once a week, keeping them up to date as to what's happening, keeping them engaged in the process. And when I look at this particular data point, it doesn't surprise me so much because we actually also measure the candidates that provide really poor reviews. And when they come through, the typical reason for that is because the consultant hasn't got back to them. They haven't actually kept them up to date. There is a bit of a, when I take consultants through this and ask them, why do you think this particular poor experience, as we call it, occurs? 9 times out of 10, someone says, oh, they're complaining because they didn't get the job. Actually, not true. Candidates know they're not going to get every job they go for. What they do care about the most, and if we think about what our worst perception of the industry is from the outside, is that we don't get back to people. We ghost people left, right, and center. So keeping the candidates up to date is significant. Just making them not feel like a number, making sure that they feel like they haven't been forgotten about. And I personally think that's probably the biggest aspect of it all. Staying in touch really does matter. And when you get that right, they're more engaged in the process. They're also more likely to share more information with you as well. Imagine calling a candidate on a Monday afternoon just to check in. How was your weekend? What's ahead for the week? Any new interviews popped up late last week that, I need to be aware of to juggle everything? That gives you more market information that you can then use, maybe go make a cold call out of the back of that as well. But it has a huge impact on fill rates. I wouldn't have thought communication, keeping people up to date would have, but it's obviously quite significant. And you know what? It's actually just the right thing to do, more than anything. So that is actually something I would be focused on. But I've seen this many times, many times over the years now. I am quite sure everyone prepares their candidates for interview. Absolutely zero doubt that happens. How well you do it, it's a whole other story. So those who get it right, a 24% relative fill rate improvement. Now, there's many things you can do, and I think every agency probably has a different approach to this. But if you're not measuring it, old cliche, you can't improve it. And just getting this part right, we saw 60% on explaining interview process and timeframes. But this should be one of the easier things to get right in preparing candidates for interview. Who are they meeting with? What's that person's background? Give them the right research links and tips and advice to go forward to that interview with confidence. Give them a call 30, 45 minutes before that, a little pep talk or a text message. Hey, good luck. All these little kind of things will actually boost that candidate's mindset just to go in and perform better. And when that is right, obviously the candidate's going to go in and perform better. They're going to actually then have a better chance of securing that job, which obviously improves fill rates and getting it right. Well, a 24% improvement, if that's the worst that you can actually do by improving the candidate experience at 24%, I don't know one agency that wouldn't take that every day of the week. So this is probably one of the lower performing ones in terms of impact, but it's also one of the simplest ones to go and get right as well. And this one intrigued me. I didn't think this would be so impactful, but clearly showing interest in the candidate, keeping them up to date, but understanding what they're looking for. This is an enormous lift when it comes to looking at temp contract roles. This is a data point specifically on that side, understanding what the candidate is looking for. 125% fill rate improvement. So it's not just, hey, you need a job, what's your salary, blah, blah, blah. Why do you need this job? Why is it important to you? When do you we need to dig a lot deeper on this. Why are they looking for a new role? What does that new role look like? It's not just, and I think we know this by now, it's not just about salary. There is a work-life balance. In fact, I don't even think there is a work-life balance thing anymore. I think it's just life. We need to fit all of these things into it. So what is it they're looking for to make their job a part of all of this so they can go put food on the table, pay the bills, do whatever they want to outside of work as well? I don't think we dig enough into this. Why is it important to them? It's a personal thing. And I think about this frequently when I'm talking to consultants about this. Imagine you're going to a barbecue this weekend and you meet someone new. What's one of the first 3 or 4 questions that you typically ask someone when you meet them for the first time? What do you do? Everyone pretty much, it'll be one of the first 3 or 4 questions. What do you do for a job? What do you do for a crust? We would say in Australia. So everyone defines themselves largely by what they do for a role. So understanding what the candidate is looking for is actually not just important from a salary perspective, it's important by how they define themselves as well. So I think we need to lean on that a little bit more. And clearly, on the temp contract side, it has a huge impact on fill rates, which if you want to improve your fill rates, which I can't imagine no one doesn't, candidate experience, doing this one thing, just asking more questions of the candidate. Pretty simple and straightforward. I'm flying through this, by the way. So we're going to get through this really quickly. So we're going to open this up for questions. In fact, let's stop there. Emily, what are our poll results?
Add 80% have said service.
Excellent. Exactly what I was hoping for. Thank you, everyone, for that. That is music to my ears completely. So we're going to get onto that result in a moment. I'm going to throw open to a question out to you all. But here's one that actually was also quite surprising. Provided feedback advice on candidate suitability. So this is talking to the candidate about, and this is in the first stage of the process that we measure when the candidate and consultant are interviewing. The consultant actually providing feedback to that candidate on why they think they're right for the job that they're considering them for. Tying all of those aspects together of what the candidate, if we think about the previous point here, understand what the candidate is looking for, tying that then into why they're suitable for the role that you're putting them forward for. Look at this, 125%, 120%. They're correlated. These 2 questions are directly correlated. What are they looking for? Understanding that, and then why are they suitable for this role that you want to put them forward for? Tying the culture together, the type of job itself. Salary obviously plays a small part. Location, where this company's going, where they sit in the market. What is that candidate looking for? All these different aspects. Tying that in, look at the impact it can have by just telling the candidate, this is why I think you are perfect, or actually the other way around, this is why I think this job is perfect for you, and this company is perfect for you, and this culture is perfect for you, and this team is perfect for you, and why I think you'll love this manager. All of these aspects actually matter. So why are they suitable for it? Tying it back into everything they've said in terms of what they're looking for. Now, you're not going to double down on this and get 125% and 120%. That's not how math works, unfortunately. It'll probably average out at about 100 or so. But that's basically doubling fill rate by just getting more deeper into this kind of conversation with the candidate and tying what they're looking for and that job opportunity together, which is a better, obviously, screening approach as well. And you might find things that don't quite match, and you can then rule that person out. That's perfectly fine. It saves everyone time, and the candidate is actually very appreciative of that, of not wasting their time. They want to find the right opportunity, and you want to find the right candidate and provide that better shortlist to the client as well. So it's just win, 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 left, right, and center. But I do think we need to dig a lot deeper into these aspects. And clearly, those consultants who do have a significant improvement when it comes to fill rate performance. So a question for you all. Emily, it was 80% service. That's quite a lot. Okay.
83 now.
83?
Yes.
Oh, it just gets better and better. Okay. 83% of you have said that you are a more service-focused, orientated mindset agency than sales. Emily, if we can take everyone off mute, I have a couple of questions for everyone. I would imagine then every single person on this session has sales KPIs in their business. Would that be true? Or is everyone on mute? Can anyone, or in the chat? Have we got the chat going there?
Yeah, the chat is open. People can they can add in stuff to the chat or to the Q&A, whichever's easiest. I'm not sure whether we can unmute people en
Yes,
masse.
it's true.
Here we go.
Yeah, I've been able to unmute people, so you're all free.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily.
Is there anyone that doesn't have sales KPIs in their business, in the agency, that you measure your consultant's performance by? I don't think we're going to get anyone say no, right? I'd be really surprised if we did. Okay, let me throw this question to you all. 83% of you said service was the focus, the mindset first versus sales in terms of how you approach everyday business. The question, therefore, is how many of you have service KPIs in your business that you measure your consultant's performance by? Because you all say you're service orientated versus sales. I don't think we'll find an agency that doesn't have sales KPIs, but how many of you have service KPIs? Chuck in the chat, put your hand up or something, or come off mute, or
Yeah, you
if
can,
anyone,
you can use the emoticons or raise your hand.
if anyone
or...
has service APIs, I'm tipping we're not going to get anyone that does, to be fair. That's not necessarily, well, it is kind of a bad thing because we can't say we're service orientated and not measure it. That doesn't make much sense to me. No one's jumping. So no one has service KPIs. That is what today's conversation is really about, and measuring this. If we're going to say we're service orientated, yet all we're doing is measuring sales, obviously that impacts the behaviors of the consultants. I would imagine, and this is still a question open to you all, would one of the typical KPIs you all have is how many interviews, how many send-outs, candidate-client interviews occur? They would be two pretty typical sales KPIs. Would anyone not have those in their business? Anyone in the chat? No one's going to jump in and say, no, we don't have those. We don't use those. Yep, okay. So I'm pretty confident that they're going to be two very significant, along with revenue, of course. So send out, CV submitted, whatever you might call it, how many candidate client interviews, two very, very common KPIs for consultants to be measured against. So let's dig into that and see actually the impact of that, because it's quite alarming. So volume matters, but not how you think. This is the complete and utter reversal of probably what you're doing today. More interviews actually leads to worse outcomes. The very bottom performers by fill rate, the bottom 25%, generate nearly 3 times more interviews, yet make fewer placements. That's not good. That's not good from a brand perspective, a time perspective, a screening perspective, a client perception perspective. We're putting people forward that just shouldn't be put forward. We're probably putting too many people forward at the same time. We're not being tough enough and limiting it to perhaps 3 per job instead of I've got one client that still goes 5 or 6 and it makes me squirm every time. We need to really think about this because clearly, and it's the old adage, and it is a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, quality versus quantity. It really does matter, and it couldn't be more stark than this example here. More interviews does not mean more placements. It actually means far fewer placements. So you really do need to find the sweet spot. Have a look at your top performers in your business. Have a look at their ratios. That's the blueprint. What do they do? Why? And I think if you had a look at your bottom performers, you'll find that their interview to placement ratios and CV submitted to interview ratios are 2, 3, even more, 4, 5 times higher than that of your best performers. There's always going to be an outlier somewhere, so don't be surprised if you see that when you look at this as well. But this is across 1,000 plus consultants. It's probably closer to over 1,200 to be fair. That we had a look at this, so it's significant data. And then the conversion of this. So the top performing consultants actually have a 70 to 75% baseline fill rate. They work far fewer jobs, they conduct far fewer interviews, but their conversion rate is twice as much. So volume does matter, but not in the way that you think. More does not equal better. More does not equal more placements. It actually means far less. And if you think about that quality quantity aspect, if I'm working 20 jobs versus working 10, my attention, my ability to actually work every job properly is heavily diluted. I'd rather work 10 jobs really well and fill 7 of them than work 20 jobs and fill 8. I might have filled one more job, but I've wasted so much more time on 12 other jobs that I just simply didn't need to. And I might have been able to fill all 10. So there is a volume conversation to be had, but it's actually in the reverse of what you think. Having sales KPIs is great, but the ratios, I think, matter more than volume. So I wouldn't be measuring, personally, I wouldn't be measuring consultants on, hey, you have to do 20 CV submissions, send outs, whatever you might call it, and there needs to be 25 candidate client interviews per month. Absolutely, that is just going to encourage the wrong behavior. That all they're going to do is hit that number and go, hey, I hit my number. Don't blame me. That's the number you set. I'm doing everything I can. I don't know, and I'm sure you've heard this and had this conversation with consultants. I've hit my number. I've done the send outs. I've done the interviews. I don't know what's going wrong. Well, all you're doing is hitting that number. The quality aspect then comes into play. And having a look at the data that I've shared previous to this, the impact, that quality aspect of what we're measuring with the candidate experience does play a very significant part. So hitting a number doesn't matter. Ratios and the service experience, the candidate experience really matters most. So that was on the perm side. This is on the temp side. So the top temp performers are achieving about a 45 to 50% fill rate versus the bottom performers 25 to 30%. So again, it's not far off double there if we hit the median on that as well. So quite a significant difference. You can literally just double your fill rates by measuring the experience being provided and focusing on some really key areas through the process to get right. Obviously explaining the interview process and timeframes, understand what the candidate's looking for, tying that in to the job, preparing them well for interviews. But without knowing who's doing what and where, it's really hard to drive that right behavior, because most agencies are doing today is measuring on a sales KPI, volume and activity rather than service yet. And this stat didn't surprise me. The 83% of you who said we're service focused, but with no service KPIs, the wrong behaviors are essentially being driven in large part. So yeah, again, the gap between the perm, the top and the bottom is quite significant. The key takeaways, though, I think I just mentioned all of these to be fair. So do have a look at those ratios, the baseline for your lowest performers versus the top, compare them side by side. You'll probably see that it could double with the right kind of behavior that's driven on both perm and contract. The bottom performing consultants, have a look at how many interviews and how many jobs they're working, because you will most likely find that they're working a significant amount of more jobs and putting far more candidates forward than your very best performers. That is a great coaching opportunity. It's a great development opportunity. It's a great revenue opportunity, to be perfectly honest, because if you get those bottom performers working in the same ratio, fashion, and focus as the top performers, you exponentially grow overnight. So just a few key takeaways there. That is actually all from me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to reach out to me and have a further conversation or have a check out of what we do a little bit further, there's my contact details. I will be very nice to you for those who have attended this in offering a silly discount. And by silly, I mean huge. But we open this up to any questions now, do we, Jackie? Or
we do indeed, although we haven't got any questions on the chat at the moment, but I just wanted to kind of pick up on a couple of the things that I noticed when you were talking there. And there were a couple of things that I found really, really interesting. The first one being about that communication piece. And you may have seen me reach over for my notebook and start jotting things down at that point. And I think just thinking about it from the candidate's point of view, when they are going through this process, they're investing time, they're investing energy, they're investing all of that thought process into it. And so if they don't hear anything, they go into that black hole. And let's face it, most of us have probably been through that experience ourselves.
100%. Yep.
Where you then just hear nothing and you think, is it me? Is it the company? Have I done something wrong? And if they're looking for a role, they want to get that feedback so they can put that into their next interview process or whatever it might be. So I think it's that ghosting, that recruitment black hole that we talk about a lot. It doesn't just have an effect on that candidate for that role, it has an effect on them going forwards as well. So I think that communication is incredibly important.
It has effect on the agency brand as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you put them forward to a client, it actually has an effect on that client, that employer's employee brand at the same time. So there's my biggest bugbear in life in general is people who ghost. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. We've all got the same hours and minutes in the day. If it's a priority for you, it's important, you will find the time. That's maybe just how I was brought up or how my brain is wired. So yeah, it's really important to get back. So every single time that we see a poor experience on our platform come through, it's because the consultant hasn't got back to the candidate. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Max has asked a question though. Any examples of service KPIs? Yeah, look, Max, I do. I've actually written about a 10-page document on this for our clients. I will actually be really transparent. It's all aligned to our platform, to be fair, because it is all the things that we measure and how to embed that into the business alongside sales KPIs. But it is essentially, in short, just measuring the candidate client experience throughout the hiring process. And we do it in a very different way than most. It's very recruitment specific. And that data I just showed you then are largely some of the questions. There's about 30 questions we ask throughout the process of both of a candidate and client separately. So 15 each at different stages. It's only 5 per stage, just to explain that a little bit clearer. But yeah, it's a lot aligned with that.
Great, thank you. The other thing that I found of particular interest as well was about that kind of the approach of, is it just a numbers game? You know, do you just throw things at the wall and see what sticks? And clearly that's not the case.
No, clearly it's really not.
About how you can, and I guess I was thinking that, is it perhaps that those recruiters who are performing really well have developed that relationship with their candidates, have done all the understanding of their candidates' needs and wants, and so they can have a better conversation, and so that's why their ratio is better? Or is it just that they're super good at what they do?
No, look, there's always going to be, from a data perspective, as I said before, there's always going to be an outlier, right? There's always going to be that top performing consultant who does huge volumes, who bills heaps. That's just their style. You're not going to be able to break that. But we constantly say, and there is definitely a mindset issue or a thought issue on this, where recruitment is seen as a sales job. And there are sales elements to the job. But recruitment, to me, is not sales. It's relationships, because we're dealing with people. And you don't make a sale until you build a relationship and provide a great service. So that's why I asked that poll question at the start: are you service or sales focused? Every agency, every single time I do this, it is about 80% plus say sales. And I follow up with the question, okay, so what are your sales KPIs? Awesome, great. No, I hear nothing new, right? It's always the same kind of ones. Great. Now, what are your service KPIs? And I did this with a prospect earlier this week. And he sat there, he's like, we don't have any. Can I get your point now? Okay, right. That is the behavior that we are driving in this industry, that agency directors and owners are driving by having just sales KPIs. Service clearly comes first. Relationships are what this industry is built on and always will be. And in the age of AI, relationships have never mattered more than ever before.
Yeah.
So if we're going to differentiate in market and show that we are relationships, we care about you, we're not just automating everything to get you out of our way so we can just put you in a job and never talk to you. Then we have to build these relationships. So we have to understand what our relationships are like with our candidates and clients. And that simply just means measuring it.
Yeah, definitely. That comment in the chat about, will we take some of those learnings and apply them to KPI measures available within Mercury? We're always adding new KPIs to Mercury into the analytics suite. So I'll certainly take this feedback away and talk to the guys about it. And we'll obviously keep you up to date with what other KPIs are in there. I think we've got 20 odd at the moment that are available to report on in analytics. And as I say, we're always looking to increase those as well. Okay, so
yeah, so we've got a client who actually is starting to use our API to pull some of the data into Power BI,
yeah,
which could obviously be pulled into Mercury as well. So we've got that ability to do that from our side, push into Mercury perhaps. So hey, Jackie, we should probably talk about that. Given who that client is as well. So yeah, there is that ability. So you're having the what I would say is the quantitative and qualitative KPIs side by side does make a lot of sense.
yeah. Great. Well, unless anyone has any other thoughts or questions, I'm just going to take the screen back for my standard end of presentation slides. So, obviously, we have a lot of things happening at Mercury all the time. So just to tell you where you can keep up to date, we have got the knowledge base, which is fantastic. It's full of brilliant resources of how to get things done and how to make the most of Mercury, and it's had a facelift recently, so it looks very, very beautiful too, so you can check that out. Then we have our wonderful community, which is full of resources and support from not just us at Mercury, but also from your peers across the industry. Tony is an absolute superstar. He manages that community. Drop him a line if you're not already a member. It's the best way to find out everything that's going on at Mercury. Then, if you've enjoyed this session today, you can sign up to all of our webinar series, which will automatically register you for the sessions. And if you don't, if you can't attend for any reason, you'll get the recording straight after as well. So I highly recommend doing that. And lastly, I do product updates every couple of weeks over on LinkedIn. So if you follow me, you will see all the latest information about what's happening at